Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is 7 o'clock. I would like to call the Rockdale County Board of Education regular session to order. Please help me welcome Mr. Charles Chavot, principal of Memorial Middle School, and scholar Sophie Gassett, as they deliver our inspirational message. Mr. Chavot? Woo!
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Superintendent Oates, Board Chairwoman Pam Brown, Rockdale County Public School System Board of Education. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to bring before you tonight not only the inspirational messenger, but an individual that is inspirational to me. When Cindy Ball gave the call and the email that it was Memorial's turn, it was without hesitation that this individual came to mind. Uh, a unique thing about y'all don't mind if I turn around and talk to Sophie, do you? Okay, because I've never shared this with her. But one unique thing about Sophie is we started our journey at Memorial together. My first full year as a principal was her sixth grade year, and she has blossomed as a phenomenal individual, from that feisty and fierce sixth grader to a phenomenal eighth grader. In 2023, she was our oratorical contest winner. In 2024, she was a finalist. She served on our eighth grade student council this year, and she is an inspiration, not only tonight, but to myself. And when the days get tough and things are hard, it is students like you, the reason why I get up with a smile and conviction to keep doing what we do every single day. You inspire me, not only you, but your family. Your mother's commitment, whenever we needed her to be there, she's there. There's been a lot of smiles, and you know how many tears there's been in the last 2.5 years. But darling, as I tell you every single day, I love you. And what I do is only for you and your peers. So as you've inspired me, I ask that you come before this board and your community and you inspire them. Thank you. Sophie Bassett.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Sophie, and I will be giving you the speech. Okay. Problems equal solutions. Emotions will have actions, and mistakes may cause regrets. We are living organisms who can change the world. We may not be able to predict the future, but we can predict the steps and choices we make for every second of our day. Our teenage minds are developing, as in every small comment, tiny detail, even misplaced style matters. Don't wear this, join on the trend. You have to say this just to fit in. Can't accept the differences into a system of repeat. Turn everyone blind just so they can't see. But as we grow and mature and use y'all guidance as our future, we appreciate y'all and we hope y'all guide us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Hey, Sophie, would you lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
Everyone, please stand. Oh.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sophie. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to do an amendment to the agenda, please,
All right.
on the board discussion. However, though I do understand and know that you all like us to give y'all forewarning, but there's something that called life, so I was not able to give you all a call. But on the board discussion, I would like to talk about the decision to take graduation to New Birth.
Go ahead. The board discussion. Do I have to have a? Okay, does he have it? All right, okay, thank you. A motion to approve the agenda do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, Shirley Chesser, the Chief Academic Officer, will honor our staff and students. Dr. Oates, would you please accompany Ms. Duncan and I? Thank you. Sure. I would.
Well, good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, board members, cabinet, and to our guests that are in attendance. Our group of students here with us tonight are winners in the Rockdale Soil and Water Conservation District Poster and Photo Contest, and one of these students was just announced as a state winner as well. Through education, assistance, and oversight, the Rockdale Soil and Water Conservation District helps to maintain the soil and water resources for Rockdale County. They are part of the larger Georgia Association of Conservation Districts, which work to promote conservation in cooperation with partner agencies, educate citizens about the importance of conservation, and inform policymakers about natural resource issues. Their mission is to advocate for the conservation of Georgia's natural resources by providing organization, leadership, and a unified strategic direction to the conservation districts of the state. This year's photo contest was called May the Forest Be With You Always, and photo contests called Conservation Practices, and they featured categories for kindergarten through 5th grade students, 6th through 8th grade students, and 9th through 12th grade students. Students are given a certificate and a monetary award for their winning artwork. We have with us tonight Ms. Dana Tripp. She is the Regional Program Manager with the Northeast Georgia Association of Conservation Districts, and also Mr. George Kelichek, who is the Director of the Rockdale Soil and Water Conservation District, here with us tonight. We would like to thank them for giving our student this opportunity and for the work they do in our community. We will invite them to join us in just a few minutes for the group photo, as we call the students. I will also direct your attention to our screen, to the big screen, so that you can see our winning artwork. And as I call each student up to the front, they will receive their certificate and also a monetary award. So parents, please know that there are checks inside those individual folders. Students, when I call your name, please come up front to receive your certificate and remain up front until we have all of our winners for the group photo. First tonight from J.H. House Elementary, we have Cameron Stallworth, who won 2nd place in the poster contest. Okay. And Cameron, why don't you come right over here for me, sweetie? Thank you. Right. Joining Cameron, also from J.H. House Elementary School, we have Ureli Meza, and Ureli won 3rd place in the photo contest. From General Ray Davis Middle School, we have Destiny Donald, and listen to this. Destiny won 1st place in the photo contest, and Destiny also is a state winner in the grades 7 through 9 category. Next, we have also from General Ray Davis Middle School, Regina Smith. Regina won 2nd place in the poster contest. And rounding out our middle school winners, we have Sarah Guy, who won 3rd place in the poster contest. Moving on to high school, from Salem High School, we have Joshua Cabay. He won 1st place in the poster contest. Also from Salem High School, we have Olivia Cook. Olivia won 2nd place in the poster contest. Mason Armand from Salem High School won 3rd place in the poster contest. Elena Sneed from Heritage High School could not be with us today, but we do want to recognize Elena as she won 1st and 2nd place in the photo contest. And rounding out this group, last but certainly not least, from Salem High School, we have Justin Taboy, who won 3rd place in the photo contest.
That we'll share with you all, but if the parents want to come up and. One, two, three. Wait, your folder. Oh. Thank you. One, two, three. Sorry.
Excuse me, one more moment. I do want to bring this trip and Mr. Kellichek up as well, please. Forgive me. Just been done this without your support. Sorry about that. So why don't you on this side? Okay.
You scooting just a smidge. Thank you. One, two, three.
So post these pictures on our social media platforms. So if you weren't able to get a picture and you want one, we'll be sure to put it on our website and all of our social media. Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes our presentations.
All right, this is the time. Let's see. That we allow our visitors to come to the podium and speak. We have 3 visitors tonight. We do not normally address your concerns today, but we ask the administration to address your concerns and provide you with an appropriate response. If your topic involves a personnel matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated, we have specific grievance procedures for these matters. Speakers should be professional, and we respectfully ask that you refrain from using obscene, profane, or vulgar language. And you should not make threats, engage in personal attacks, make slanderous remarks, or engage in behavior that disrupts the decorum of this meeting. By submitting a request comment card, you acknowledge and agree that you understand and will follow the guidelines for this meeting decorum and public participation. At this time, I would like to welcome Mr. George Kelichek. Please come forward.
Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Superintendent Oates, board members, citizens of Rockdale County. George Kelichek, representing Rockdale Saltwater Conservation District and also the Upper Okmulgee Basin Area Council. I'm your voice at the Capitol, and I just finished traveling over 1,200 miles throughout the state of Georgia with the Senate Study Committee regarding preserving Georgia farmland, which is very important, not only to us, but future generations, where we provided monetary value for their great efforts regarding conservation. Since 1974, 2.6 million acres of farmland have been lost due to unplanned development in this state. And the reason the Senate Study Committee was formed, if we don't do something by 2030, we'll have another 750,000 acres lost. And so as we look at this, one of the items, 12 recommendations that the Senate Study Committee came up with was to have a state agricultural committee that will be set up where funding will go into an authority to fund new farmers coming into this business. Our average farmer now in the state of Georgia is 65 years old. New farmers coming in are only 47 years old. So we've got to have the new generations coming on board and funding for their expenses as they go into this important business. So for 2025, the Rockdale Saltwater Conservation District, in unison with the Georgia Department of Transportation, will have a wildflower project on every intersection of I-20. So when you come through Rockdale County, you'll see some very, very nice wildflower projects at each intersection. Also, we are continuing to work with Honey Creek and C.J. Hicks Elementary Schools regarding their outdoor learning centers. The Haynes Watershed, which I also head up, we will have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers coming in 2025 to do a complete 100% federally funded assessment of the 56,000 acres, which includes Gwinnett, Walton, Rockdale, and Newton counties, along with signage, Haynes Watershed signage on Georgia 78 and 20. So I think it's apropos that I play this little piece from Paul Harvey.
Sir, thank you for your time. Your time is up. Sir, again, your time is up.
Somebody willing to get up before dawn, no.
No.
That's up to the board to make that decision, but we try to be consistent with all our speakers and allow 3 minutes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Kwame Arabalia. Did I pronounce that correctly? Kwame, welcome.
How you doing? My name is Kwame Akiwula. I represent the IBW 613 and the EWMC. My daughter's a student at Peaks Chapel Elementary, where I'm also a part of the PTO there. I'm simply here to speak to you all tonight about my group's trying to do some outreach, and we're trying to reach out to the youth coming out of school so we can help expand careers in the electrical field and show them there are other options. We are also a part of the STEM field. Our program offers 2 years towards an electrical engineering degree, paid training, and it allows them to get their training on the job as well. So I was just simply here tonight to try to find out from you all, or I understand questions might not be answered tonight, but just to simply ask about how we can get in with the job fair so we can spread the news and introduce ourselves to the students of Rockdale County and make ourselves more prevalent. We're pretty much based out of Atlanta. However, we want to reach to the whole metropolitan area since we know that that's where our constituents are as well. Thank you.
Ms. Turner, Corliss Turner.
Madam Chair, I have a question, please.
Just a moment.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairwoman Pam Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, board members, and Dr. Oates. I just want to speak on what Sandra Jackson Lett spoke on the graduation. In 2023, it was 45,000. 2024, 54,000. For 2025, it's 90,000. Mandy North said the first priority is the students. There's parents that take care of the students, and you're taking it out of Rockdale County. You just hit us with a big tax bill. Enough is enough. Who did you all solicit? And I know you're going to send me an email to tell me this. Who else did you reach out to as far as a bid on the graduation? I would think you all could find something a little less expensive. Cost of living or inflation hasn't gone up that much, almost 100% from last year. If it's going up on these places, it's going up on groceries. Everything's going up. We're all experiencing that. When is it that you take consideration? I don't have children in school, so we do feel as seniors that when we come speak, we're ignored because how can you say anything? You don't have children. You got my tax dollars. And I'm speaking for those that cannot speak. I think you all should reconsider if possible. We don't mind losing $1,000 for canceling the contract, but reconsider and reach out somewhere else, even if it's not Rockdale, somewhere cheaper. Thank you for your time.
Magic Board, please come forward.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, faculty, and honored guests. My name is Magic Boyd, and first, I want to give all glory to God for his guidance and blessings in my life. Without him, I wouldn't be standing here today sharing my story. He has been my strength through every challenge and light in every dark moment. The quote, "Every setback is a setup for a comeback," by Dr. Umar Rashad feels like the story of my life. and Rockdale County Schools has been the foundation for every single one of those comebacks. Through my journey at Sims Elementary, Davis Middle School, RCA, and now Magnet, I've learned that setbacks aren't roadblocks. They are stepping stones to something greater. At Sims Elementary, I took my first steps towards becoming the person I am today. I was just a scholar with big dreams and even a bigger imagination. The teachers there didn't just teach me how to read and write, they taught me how to believe in myself and trust the journey. At Davis Middle School, I learned resilience. Middle school is a time of growth filled with moments of self-doubt and challenges, and it was during those years that I discovered the power of perseverance. I learned that even when I felt like giving up, there was always a way forward. Then came Rockdale Career Academy, where doors of opportunity opened wide. RCA gave me hands-on experiences, especially in the world of IT. Through classes and certifications like CompTIA, IT Fundamentals, and Network Pro, I gained skills that have prepared me for the workforce. RCA just didn't give me tools for success, it gave me confidence in my ability to achieve my goals. And now I'm at Magnet, where I've been pushed to new limits. And now I know that I'm not even finished yet, but Magnet has taught me that the journey is just as important as the destination. With a year and a half still to go, I know there will be more hills and valleys ahead. This school has prepared me to face life's challenges head on, reminding me that success isn't measured by how easy the path is, but how faithfully we walk in it. Tomorrow, I'll celebrate another year of life. And in the future, I'll celebrate my graduation. But between now and then, I know life will hold more moments of triumph and struggle. Yet I am confident that with God by my side, I will continue to rise stronger and wiser for every setback. Sims gave me my foundation, Davis taught me resilience, RCA opened doors I didn't know existed, and Magnet is still shaping me into the person I'm meant to be. With my family, my faith, and the incredible educators and leaders of Rockdale County Public Schools supporting me, I know that every setback will lead to even a greater comeback. Thank you to the Board of Education and the Rockdale community for believing in me, and thank you to God, who has carried me through every step of this journey and will continue to carry me wherever lies ahead. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we move on, I do have a question. I was trying to get your attention. I would like to address Mr. Kellercheck's request, and I heard Santana say it's the board's decision. We were not given an opportunity to further discuss whether or not we wanted to hear as a board the rest of what he was sharing. And I do understand the importance of keeping that 3 minutes, the same for everyone. But I would like us to make an exception this time. I would like to hear what the rest of what he was saying or what he was sharing. So,
So do you all want
uh, Santana, what would happen at this point? Do we vote on it or what would happen?
to? No, we don't.
Or just consensus?
It's just a consensus.
Yeah, there would not be.
Okay.
Just consensus, right?
Okay.
Agrees that you're willing to give him an additional time,
Mhm.
then that's the board's decision.
Okay.
I see consensus, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Kalichek? Do you want to come and finish playing your recorder?
Thank you to the board for providing me 2 minutes. As I was getting ready to say, no water, no soil, no farms, no food. Let me play this excerpt from Mr. Paul Harvey regarding God created a farmer.
Somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing. Who would laugh, then sigh, and reply with smiling eyes. His son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. God made a farm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I want to turn it over to Dr. Oates for cabinet updates, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Madam Vice Chairwoman, our board members, executive cabinet. We also have staff in the audience as well as our community members. At this time, our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Joycelyn Smith, will come forth with the financial report.
Hello? Oh. Good evening, Madam Chair, Pamela Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, remaining board, Dr. Oates, Cabinet, and Community. Tonight, I'll be bringing the final financial report for the month of November. The revenues for the month of November were $24 million. Year-to-date, we were at $65.6 million, representing 30.1% of the budget. Revenues last year this time were $20.9 million. Year-to-date was $61.8 million, representing 30.9% of the budget. Expenditures were $18.1 million for November, $89.3 year-to-date, representing 40.2% of the budget. Last year, it was $16.9 and $86.2 million year-to-date, representing 42.1% of the budget. Our encumbrances were $2,751,909 for November. The fund balance was $4,899,974. Last year, this time it was $11,899,998. On our balance sheet, we had assets of $4,899,974. We cleared our liabilities, paid off our TAN. But ending fund balance was $4,899,974. Tonight, I'll also be talking about House Bill 581. House Bill 581 was elected by the citizens of Georgia on November 5th, 2024. This was voted to implement a statewide floating homestead exemption for all local governments. This includes counties, cities, and school boards. This legislation limits the amount of increase allowed on assessed values of homestead exempted properties to the rate of inflation. The difference between the assessed value and the capped assessment of the property becomes the exemption for the taxpayer. This bill goes into effect as of January 1st, 2025. Each local government has the option to opt out of House Bill 581, and it has to be done by March 1st, 2025. In order to do so, we must advertise in the newspaper, hold 3 public hearings, and it must be approved by the board. And once approval is sought, we get the resolution to the state by March 1st. If the board of any local government chooses not to opt out of 581, 581 becomes the law and the floating exemption remains in effect. House Bill 581 allows counties and cities the option to pass an additional penny sales tax to help supplement any lost revenue caused by the legislation. However, it does not provide that exemption for school boards. Local tax dollars and state QBE funds are a primary source of our local revenue for our schools, to fund our schools. This example shows the impact of 581 to the taxpayer. So this legislation does aim to provide citizens with a tax relief. So let's look at the potential impact to the taxpayer. On this slide, you will see a comparison of the tax implications for homestead properties with the 2024 fair market value of $150,000 and also $420,000. We will assume that in 2025, there is an inflation rate of 4% and 14% increase in the assessed values of those properties. So with the $150,000 property, under House Bill 581, the value becomes $156,000 in 2025. The assessed value would go to 156,000, excuse me. And the assessed value would go to 171,000. The the assessed value would be 62,400. And the fair market value would be 171,000. So that's where under current law, we'd be receiving tax revenue off of that amount. The assessed value would go to 68,400. The difference between those, the $6,000, the 62 and the 68, $6,000 is that person's exemption. The total annual increase to the taxpayer is $120 or $10 a month. With the $420,000 home, the fair market value goes to $436,800. And under the regular law, it would go to $478,800 under our current law. The assessed values would be $174,720 and $191,520 respectively. This represents $16,800 in exemption to the taxpayer. The annual increase would be $336 or $28 a month. When you look at those two different properties and you look at the exemptions between the two, the lower property, the $150,000 property, there's a $6,000 exemption. On the $420,000 property, there's a $16,800 exemption. So some people would say that, look at this law and say that it was designed for the wealthy. That's the impact to the taxpayer. Let's look at the impact to the school system. Using the same assumptions that the 4% increase in the inflation rate in 2025 and a 14% increase in the assessed value, the district's tax revenue would see a drop of 5.5 million approximately. So it'd go from 62 million that we would receive under the current law down to 56 million. Considering the increase in our employer costs, increase in utilities and goods and services, this loss of funds has huge implications. On the lower part of this slide, you'll see the difference between our revenue earned on homestead properties versus what we would have received under House Bill 581 for the past 6 years. In this example, the consumer price index was used as the rate of inflation. And it shows that the district would have, shows that the district would have lost $24 million over this time. That's a substantial loss in revenues. For reference, we ended our FY24 year with a $23.5 million fund balance. The district would not be able to sustain such a loss and continue to provide the students of Rockdale County with the current level of educational opportunities. In order to demonstrate the increase the district has seen in employer costs, the table on this slide shows the progression of the total pay of a starting teacher over the last 4 years. We have seen mandated increases in not only the salary for our teachers, but also what we are required to pay in state health and teachers' retirement benefits. The starting pay has increased from $8,500, $6,500 of this was mandated by the state. State health has gone up 46%, from $11,340 in 22 to $21,120 annually in the current year. This is per certified employee. The percentage of an employee's salary that has to be paid toward their retirement has gone from 19.81% of their salary to 20.78% of their salary over this time. And we already know that the TRS rate will increase from 20.78 this year to 21.91 in 2025-2026 year. As you can see, a starting teacher cost the district $21,842 more over this time period. 1,400 of our 2,400 employees are certified, so that $21,000 state health cost applies to all of them that take our insurance. So also I want to show you the difference in looking at a para and how that expenditure looks. Looking at a starter para, we currently pay $17,420 in state health for that para. 20.78 of their pay is paid to teachers' retirement system. And again, that'll increase to 21.91%. So our total employer cost for that para is $22,336. This is greater than the para's salary, which is $19,473. We also anticipate an increase in the classified state health to match the amount that we're paying for our certified in FY26. As 88% of our budget is from salaries and benefits, which is not untypical for school districts, there is no way that our budget can stay the same year over year. Our employer costs are significant and rise each year. And just for reference, our teachers, our certified staff take up about, our certified teachers, their experience is their step. So we have to give them a step increase because that equates to their experience. And so our costs will go up as hopefully we retain those teachers that we have. So what are the potential consequences? On the right one. What are the potential consequences? An increase in the millage rate is possible, reduced staff, administrative staff, and instructional staff, increased class sizes, reduced non-salary or operating costs, reduction to our specialty programs, and implementation of furloughs. Most of these will end up in reduced morale and make it harder to recruit and retain qualified staff. And we know that that's already a big concern, especially with our teaching staff, retaining and keeping qualified staff and trying to compete with other districts as, you know, people are trying to get that talent and raising salaries. The impact of underfunded school systems to the community. A poorly educated workforce can hinder economic growth and reduce the attractiveness of the community for businesses and investors. This can lead to fewer job opportunities and lower overall prosperity. There is a correlation between lower educational attainment and higher crime rates. By not investing in schools, communities may see an increase in crime, which can create a less safe and less attractive environment for residents and businesses. And also, the quality of local schools is a key factor for families when choosing where to live. Poorly funded schools can lead to decreased property values as fewer families move into the area. This can have a cascading effect on the local economy and the community services funded by property taxes. These are the risks of opting out. Locked into a decision once we, locked, the risk of opting in. Thank you for correcting me. If we do not opt out, we are locked into this decision of taking that floating homestead exemption. There's nothing that can change that other than some more legislation. So there's too many unknowns right now with so many changes coming down the pipe. We have, we know we have Senate Bill 233, which is the voucher bill that will impact our state revenues. We don't know what's going to happen with the Department of Education. I doubt that they'll be able to shut it down, but there might be some, limitations of funding that we may get. We don't know. And what happens in the situation where we have go into a recession? The last time we saw a recession, the state cut our funding like mid-year because they could not afford to give us the revenue, the money that they anticipated. And so what happens when we have fewer tax revenues and we also have fewer, we have been experiencing fewer lower QBE funding. And these are our biggest funds, pots of money to fund our students' education. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions, board?
Okay.
Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, just for clarity, if we opt out of, or excuse me, if we opt in to 581 or we stay in to 581, and your second slide said that there was a difference of, if in 2024, $6,715,263.20. But would you agree with me that even though the assessed value of the home is capped, or what can be taxed on the home is capped, it still increases with the rate of inflation?
It increases with the rate of inflation, but if you look at how our increases have gone and have we been impacted by higher costs, the same costs that are impacting our citizens, cost of goods and services, everything, contracted services, everything is increasing. Our expenditures are not increasing at the rate of inflation, they're exceeding that.
I understand that, but the HB 581 only impacts homesteads, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it does not impact investment properties, commercial properties that would be assessed at the rate of the increased assessment of those properties, correct?
Correct. But I would say we have, in this particular county, we have a much larger population of homesteaded properties just because we don't have the whole land. We're locked in. We don't have a whole bunch of businesses as much as other communities.
We build businesses instead of townhomes, but that's for the Board of Commissioners and not for the Board of Education.
Exactly.
So let me. But 60% of the voters in Rockdale County voted for HB 581. And we have had a parade of people come in asking us not to opt out and to find a better way. So one of my concerns is these people don't lobby only us, they also lobby our local legislators as well, and our local delegation. And if there is a push where if we opt out for local legislation to be submitted in Atlanta for a reduction in our millage rate, because right now our max is 30, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's above the statutory maximum of 20, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if there is a push to decrease the maximum millage rate for Rockdale County to 20, we are already at max. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so if we have an increase, or if we no longer realize the 19% increase in property values in Rockdale County, we're going to be pretty well stuck in terms of the revenues that we can levy on corporations and the homesteads. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we could, what's the phrase? Bite off your nose to spite your face. If we vote to opt out, we could be further hindered in terms of revenue collection because we can't increase our millage rate higher than what it currently is.
Well, you're saying that's not happening right now.
But if there is a push for the local legislation or for the local delegation to submit local legislation to reduce our millage rate cap, that we could be in even more trouble if we stay in, or excuse me, if we opt out of 581, and we have to expect, or we have to expect that property values increase at a rate greater than the CPI. And so my concern is if it no longer increases at the 19%, and we have had a push for tax abatement with the local legislators and they cap us at 20, we're going to have a more difficult time raising revenue than if we opt out of 581. Has anybody thought about that possibility?
That is a possibility, Mr. Guinea, but just to be clear, you're referring to hypothetical legislation versus existing legislation that is effective January 1st. And I think it comes down to we've got, as a Board of Education, our top priority is to make sure that our local educational system is sufficiently funded. And I think that CFO Smith has done a very good job of laying out what the real consequences would be from a funding perspective for the local school district. And before you even talk about the loss of local revenue as a function of not opting out of 581, she detailed all of the existing factors that are reducing annually our funding. She talked about, of course, the increase in teacher retirement contributions that the district has to put to employees, as well as the increase in benefits and health insurance as well. One thing I don't think she mentioned is the fact that we have had a decrease in equalization grant funding that we receive as a function of the local 5 mil share that we've have to contribute from our overall mills. And that has increased annually our contribution to local 5 mil share, while our receipt of equalization grant funding has consistently decreased. And then we have Senate Bill 233, which is the voucher, which will divert $6,500 per student out of the system. They're not holding the private schools to the same accountability system and metrics that local public schools are held to. Grossly unfair, but we would be taking the hit of funding, also not having a level playing field when it comes to accountability. So while I appreciate the discussion of the hypothetical legislation, what we have before us, the ox is in the ditch right now in the form of 581 and its impact on local funding. And I would also say, well, I'll reserve my comments for my remarks. I do want to speak a little more about 581. It's come more into focus what other school districts within Metro RESA and in Griffin RESA are doing with respect to opting out. And some of these boards have already met and made their intentions to opt out known. So I can speak to that, and I'll reserve the balance of my time for my remarks and updates.
And I appreciate that, but I haven't relinquished the floor, Dr. Oates.
Oh, no, and that's fine. You can
Thank you.
retain it.
So I lost my, the hypothetical. So my concern is if we opt out of 581, we have guaranteed revenue for 2025, but what happens in 2026? The hypothetical is a real scenario that we have to consider. And if nobody has reached out to the local delegation to see what they intend to do if we decide to opt out, if they introduce that legislation, then we could have serious problems in terms of funding and RCPS. So I just want that to be known, that concern to be known. With that, I relinquish the floor. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Board, thank you. Okay, Dr. Oates?
Yes, if I could, and as we continue to discuss the implications for House Bill 581 on our local funding, I'm committed to sharing with our board what the potential impact of 581 would be on our local funding. And it would be significant, and I won't be too redundant because CFO Smith has already talked about the $24 million loss of revenue if that were in effect over the prior 6 fiscal years, and she talked about the impact of such a significant reduction in funding. I want to talk about the fact that Rockdale County Public Schools is one of 12 metropolitan Atlanta school districts. Other districts in Metro RESA include Clayton, Fulton, Gwinnett, DeKalb, City Schools of Decatur, Merida City Schools, Beaufort City Schools, just to name a few. I said Douglas, I believe, of course, Rockdale. And we also have 2 nearby school districts, Henry and Newton, which are part of Griffin RESA. And what I can tell you is that I'm the most immediate past chair and vice chair of the Metro RESA, and I can tell you, having talked to all of my colleagues in those districts, I have not found one who's not opting out in Metro RESA. And I can also tell you, I listened intently to the Newton County Board of Education board meeting last evening that was broadcast. And it was quite amazing to see that while there were some concerns and different views early on, all 5 of the board members indicated that they would be supporting opting out. And it wasn't because they don't want to see tax relief to homesteaded property owners. It's just that they spoke to, and there was one member who spoke very passionately, who avowed that he's extremely fiscally conservative, but that he looked at his own situation and saw that he would have a savings of $30 a month, but he said he didn't want to prioritize that savings of $30 a month over the local school district not being adequately funded. Another concern that I have is that if we don't opt out, then clearly we've already talked about the implications for what would have to happen to account for the significantly reduced funding. That would make the situation of teacher retention and recruitment even more challenging, as CFO Smith pointed out, because employees would look at nearby districts like Newton and other districts nearby that would not be opting out, because they would understand that if we weren't opting out, the impact on our revenue and the impact on possibly having to have furloughs. And we're not saying that that would be the case, but it would have to be on the table. Furloughs would have to be on the table to recoup some of the revenue, the significant revenue that would be lost in time. And the other thing you have to point out is the other option that we have to recover funding would be the millage rate. But of course, that is subject to the majority vote of the board. And I'm just being very transparent. I think I know the inclination of the incoming majority, because I've spoken to individuals. I know the previous votes on millage rate. And so let's just assume, since we entertained hypotheticals earlier, let's just assume hypothetically we don't opt out, and a recommendation, a potential or hypothetical future recommendation by me of an increased millage rate is rejected summarily by a majority of the board in 2025. We're talking about hypotheticals. That would be very, very difficult, because we'd be literally between a rock and a hard place, not able to get the necessary support for a millage rate increase to recoup some of the funding lost because of 581's impact. And of course, not being able to do anything with House Bill 581, because to not opt out is to permanently be in. And that's the other thing, it's permanent. Now, someone would say in theory, legislation could be taken up, but we can't plan our funding on the prospect of a future legislature, just totally invalidating this legislation. And so that's very, very, very important in terms of understanding what the implications would be. Make no mistake about it. The fact that, and let me just tell you, I talked to two colleagues who represent very wealthy school districts with some of the highest median incomes in the entire country. One of those districts I served as chief academic officer in for 4 years prior to coming to Rockdale County as superintendent. And I can tell you that I asked them, what's your board going to do? And they said, we're opting out. And I said, why? They said, well, we just can't sustain the amount of local funding that would be lost. We just can't sustain that. And the fact that it is, as the legislation is constructed, it's permanent, right? And so it is possible, hypothetically, that the current board would be, if they do not opt out, binding future boards of education that would be encountering cyclical recessions. They would be binding them by there being an inability for them to generate the necessary revenue to fund local education, even while we know that for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue to see increases in the amount that the school district has to contribute to each employee's teacher retirement system, as well as having to contribute more for the benefits and health insurance of certified and classified employees, as well as those other costs that I talked about, where we're getting less equalization grant funding, but we're having to pay more in local 5 mil share. And so as superintendent and CEO and as the treasurer to the board, it doesn't necessarily give me pleasure to make the point that we need to opt out, but that is my recommendation as superintendent, not because I want that to do that, but because I think we must do that for the sake of our students. And I yield the balance of my time for my updates and remarks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And your recommendations to opt out. But when it comes to what we're gonna have to pay for, you can't hear me? I'm sorry, thank you. I hear what you're saying about hypothetical and anticipate and all and such as that. But my question is, if our enrollment, so if our projection of enrollment, because ARC said we're not bringing in families, we're bringing in older people. So where do that put our school district, far as the economics that we would need if we're gonna have less students.
So
And I remember we haven't discussed that or looked at that, but if we're already low in enrollment and ARC, and I'm just going by what documentation and data has been presented, ARC said we're not bringing in families into Rockdale County. We bringing in an older generation without children. So, and hypothetical, anticipate, whichever words we want to use, if our enrollment is down, that means we may not have to have as many staff members and whatever else may be into play. What is the thought about that with our enrollment going down?
I appreciate the question, Ms. Jackson-Led. And so it's important to note that the funding formula for the state of Georgia for providing state funding to school districts is quality basic education, QBE. And at its core, that funding formula is linked and tied to FTE, full-time equivalency, which is accounting for the enrollment of students in specific programs across 6 segments a day. And so I would argue, and I appreciate Ms. Jackson for raising this issue, that to the extent that we accept for the sake of argument that there's been a reduction in enrollment, and there has been over the last 10, 15 years, that would be an argument for opting out because we realize that there would be some loss of revenue as a function of the QBE formula. Now, listen, I have plenty of criticism about the QBE formula because it was established in 1980, in the mid 1980s, so over 40 years ago, and they've not updated that funding formula to account for, say, poverty, which is a huge a disappointment. I will say that there has been recommendations to offer up legislation to deal with that. But what I would say is I think that's partly an argument for opting out because our state funding is inextricably linked to enrollment. That said, we currently are exceeding our projected enrollment for this school year, which was at about 15,140 thereabout, and we're at just under 15,300. So, and again, of course, I've spoken to citizens who have expressed their concerns about the growth, and they anticipate that, as I do, that eventually that growth will include additional students. But so that would be my answer there, is to say our QBE state funding would be impacted under the scenario of reduced enrollment, which in my judgment would make a greater case for opting out.
In enrollment, then you're gonna have to do a decrease in staff because you're not gonna need as many teachers and all that. So that's where the HB 581, because that's what you're saying, because the reason for it is because staff and the admin will be decreased, but if we don't have the students, we'll have to decrease anyway.
Well, if there's a significant, clearly the allocation of staff is a function of the allocation, how many students we have, right? But what I would say to that is, and we saw this even recently as we entertained a vote last week, is that we've seen an increase. It's not just the decrease, but it's where the decreases are and where the increases are. We've seen an increase over the last decade and a half in the students who require a specific IEP-based services, what we more commonly refer to as special education services. And we saw, for example, last week, and we're not divulging anything about identity of student, but student who requires some extensive medical attention and that it required a nurse for that student. And that happens sometimes. And that cost for that nurse was roughly $67,000, I believe, Joyce, or thereabout. Yeah, about 6,000-7,000. So the issue is that we can have a scenario in which we have an overall reduction in students, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a reduction in costs or staffing, because we may need more special education instructional personnel than we would what we call general education or regular education personnel. But I think Board Member Jackson raised an important point that there's a linkage, a fundamental linkage between student enrollment, the number of students you have, and the funding that you draw and the impact on the staffing that you would need. But I think it's important to point out where those needs are, not just in the generic talking about student enrollment. But thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Please review the important reports. Sure, I'm looking at it right here. The reports the cabinet has uploaded under the information section. The board has reviewed the minutes for all board meetings held in November. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for all board meetings held in November?
So moved, Heather.
Second, Justin.
Thank you. A motion to approve the November board minutes has been made by Ms. Duncan and second by Mr. Kenny. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. All right. Last week, the board voted to place numerous action items on a consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the action items under the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second, Akita.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Ms. Duncan and second by Ms. Palmer. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and go into board discussion, and then we will go to executive session. So board discussion, Ms. Lett, you want to start your discussion?
Microphone.
I asked for the new birth, the graduation being held, the new birth to be placed on the board discussion. And I do understand that it's at the discretion of the superintendent to where he would like to have the graduation. However, though, it's up to the board to approve when it's over a certain amount, which it was voted and approved last month to go to new birth at a rate of $90,000. But my concern is, and let me reference things we've said in the past, when we do a survey, everybody's not going to participate in the survey. You're going to have a handful of people that's going to participate. So I'm taking that scenario that they use on a regular basis, that we use here on a regular basis, that we're going to do the percentage. So if I have 5 interns that I speak to on a daily basis, and they say, why are we having our graduation out of the area? Why can't we have our graduation at our school? And 3 out of 5 say, we want it in the area. 2 say no. The majority said they want it in the community. They want it at their school. Also, many times we say it's all about the children. But then at the end, I hear people say that, and let me reference this, because they tell my time, Ms. Jackson, let you sound like you're angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm just passionate about what I do. So when I'm speaking because I'm speaking from my heart. Because when I'm out in the community, and whether at the grocery store, at a Christmas party, or wherever I am, and people come up to me, Miss Sandra, why do we have to go outside of the community? Miss Sandra, Miss Jackson, and I don't care, and I love them, and I'm all over my community. So I'm being sought by various people. So my concern is, was there a survey done with the students? I understand it was said at one meeting that the grandmother said if it wasn't inside at New Birth, she wouldn't attend it. But at that time, it's not about the grandmama, it's about the children. If the children want to graduate at their high school, if they want to graduate in their community, I think we need to take in consideration what these kids, these children want. It's not about the convenience of grandmama, grandpa, board member, cabinet member. It's not about that. It's what these children want. Back in the day, we had 5 tickets. We didn't have live stream back then. Now you can get 5 tickets and live stream in your backyard. We'll party when I get home. So I'm asking, we need to do a reconsideration of where we're having this graduation. And I know all too many times, and everybody know every year I've been against it. I've been straight against it. But my thing is, no, maybe Springfield can accommodate us if we go and tell him we need 11 tickets. But if we can get a number where we can accommodate our children here in Rockdale County, we need to take a look at what we're doing, because it's all about the children. If the children are not having graduating at New Birth, and yeah, they're going to go along with the flow because they want that diploma. But we need to consider what these children want.
Madam Chair, I'll be deferential to board members if there are other board members who wish to share perspectives before I respond on the operational side and share a different perspective.
Yeah, change is never easy, right? I too have talked to a lot of community citizens. I'm talking to parents and I'm talking to children.
I talked to a lady today. She had 5 students to come through Rockdale County Public Schools. She has one graduating this year. And she was adamant. She is happy it is inside. She said during her daughter graduation, she had family members to leave because it was so hot that they could not even stay in the stadium. She had another situation where one of her students was graduating and it rained. She has a very large family. Only 2 people could go into the gymnasium to watch her son graduate. So again, change is never easy. And my job is to make sure I'm listening to the community, but my first priority is to the students of Rockdale County as well. And I do think moving it inside is for the best betterment. The first year that I was on the board, I know Sandra mentioned the grandmother. That grandmother, Pam and I had to put her in our car and drive her to the stadium because she was passing out from walking to get to the stadium. And she was elated and excited that we took the time to help her to get to the stadium so that she can watch her grandchild graduate. I have heard time and time again of parents and grandparents that want to be inside because of the heat. We talk about global warming. It is real, and the temperature is not what it was 20 years ago and 30 years ago. There is no covering in these stadiums. There is nowhere for the people to go. I am passionate as well about these kids, and I want the best for all of them. I want the best for their families, and I do want them to all enjoy the graduation. And I did not hear one complaint last year when the parents came out. I walked outside. And I was out greeting the parents outside after graduation, all of them. And I did not hear one person complain. They was happy to be inside in the air, and they was happy to see their grandchildren walk across the stage or their children walk across the stage. They say it was not a bad seat in the house. And so for me, I hear you. I hear you. But again, I'm listening to the students and the parents of Rockdale County students that will be graduating. That's who I'm listening to.
And once, let me just clarification. I didn't say have it outside. And we can find somewhere in Rockdale County, we need to do whatever these children want.
Right.
Like I say, we may get them 11 tickets at New Birth. And if we only can have to give them 3 or 4 at Springfield, because we can't compare 11 at Springfield versus 11 at Newburgh, but I'm sure we can come with a comfortable number where we can get these children inside a building if that's going to be the issue. I'm just saying they want it here in the county. And yes, it can be comfortably in the county at Springfield or wherever else that we can find. Maybe a decrease in tickets. But like I say, back in the day, we didn't have live stream, but we can put a live stream at home and they'll be ready for the party.
Go ahead.
A few other issues that haven't been mentioned. I've had the pleasure of attending 2 graduations since I've been on the board, both of which have been at New Birth, and I am not faulting New Birth. And it is a beautiful facility. There was beautiful graduations, but I've got kids in school. I know a lot of teachers. I know a lot of members of the community. Nobody has really been ecstatic about the move of graduations to New Birth that I've spoken to. And the fact that we've had these graduations on a Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. and going to 6 p.m. has been very off-putting to a lot of people within Rockdale County Public Schools. There are teachers who have invested in students for years that have followed up with students moving through Rockdale County Public Schools, but because they teach elementary school, they do not have the ability to attend a graduation of somebody that they may have mentored because it is a critical day and they can't leave the students that they're still teaching because it's Wednesday at 10 a.m. or Wednesday at 2 p.m. So I've heard numerous complaints about that particular issue. If the board wants to, continue to have, or the majority of the board wants to continue to have the graduation at New Birth, I would suggest that we take every opportunity we can to secure dates and times, say a Saturday, where the teachers and other staff members can actually attend the graduations. We also have to think about the students, but we can't forget the parents. A lot of parents can't take off work on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. If my son graduated I'm a practicing attorney in town. If my son were a senior in high school and he graduated on a Wednesday at 10 or 2, there's a very real possibility that I have a court conflict. And I'm sure I could get out of it, but that's still additional steps that I have to take, that I have the luxury of a judge saying, yeah, go attend your son's graduation. Not everybody necessarily has that ability to do so. They may be in a job where it's not so easy for them to take off. We've never thought about that. That's never been discussed. So the other issue is the fact that it's gone from 45,000, what was it, to 54 to 90,000. I mean, it's almost doubled in a year. I don't understand how in the world that we can complain about a loss of revenue and then pay $90,000 for graduation. So I concur with Ms. Jackson-Lett that we need to reconsider this contract, consider rescinding this contract, which my reading of it allows us to do so with a loss of $1,000, reach out to, say, Springfield Church to see if that is a viable venue for us. Yes, there may be a reduction in tickets, but it is also a beautiful venue with an ability to stream. And other organizations I'm involved in, we have used the facility and it has worked just fine for us. So I would suggest the administration reach out to Springfield to see if that's a viable option for us.
No, you go. Yes, and I appreciate the Ms. Jackson-Lett, Mr. Kinney, Ms. Palmer. I appreciate your comments. Let me just share that as superintendent, I have received a lot of emails and calls early on in my tenure when I first came on, complaints about the inconvenience of congestion within communities where though the schools are located. Obviously, you're going to have your greatest congestion with parking. Particularly, there was a parent who she doesn't have children, but she lives in close proximity to Rockdale County High School. Talked about not being able to get out of her residence to go about what she needed. And then I remember Heritage, where 138 is lined with cars. And I was leaving a graduation ceremony there one year, and there were mothers walking with their young children, holding their hands with them on the side where cars are coming. And it was frightening, actually, to look at. And so keep in mind when we share anecdotes about what parents have said to us, I've been inundated with the complaints about what the implications are for having graduations in the communities. And the other thing is, this is what was guiding. So to Ms. Jackson-Lett's point, she's right. Operational decisions such as where graduation will occur and those things are the purview of the superintendent in collaboration and consultation with my executive cabinet. But I will tell you, I certainly wanted an inside venue. I spoke to Springfield my first year in the district, which was the 18-19 school year, as a superintendent, talking to them because I knew all of the limitations to being outside, the inclement weather, potential of severe weather or severe heat, right? The having to have a contingency plan. A few years ago, we had to move Rockdale County High School's graduation to Saturday. Then I was inundated with some people and staff saying that's Memorial Day weekend and we were leaving and going out of town, right, on Saturday. And so, so let's just all accept that when you're making large scale congregant planning like this, you're not going to be able to satisfy and accommodate everybody's wishes and preferences. I think we all, raise your hand if you ever had to plan a family reunion, right? Yeah. I think we can agree that you're not going to always be able to accommodate every preference. And that's the reality. So a decision has to be made, and I want to make that decision on the basis of what's safest for our students and our families. I have a superintendent student advisory of high school students, then separately middle school, then separately elementary. And I do ask them about, because I do have seniors every year as part of that. I've not had a student this year complain, right? I haven't had any student complain to me. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't like ideally to be able to graduate in their stadium, but that just hasn't been, and the students really love the fact that we have quality professionals live streaming and recording of this event. I've gotten feedback from families who couldn't come to the physical event, but saw it right? Saw the live stream and talked about the quality of that, which New Birth is uniquely positioned to do. So these are the considerations: inside venue, one that is in close proximity to Rockdale County, ability to accommodate the required capacity. I can tell you, the thing that would inundate and that would blow up my email and my phone more than anything is if we were going to reduce the number of tickets from 11 to 3 or 4. I graduated close to 4 decades ago, and some of the others did too, if not farther back. And it's a difference, right? They're different. They're extended families. They're blended families. There are more people who want to come and be a part of the graduation ceremony. And so that's very important. I talked about the weather. Ms. Jackson mentioned an anecdote that I did share with the board where a mother said that her mother, which was the grandmother of the graduating senior honor student, would not have been able to attend the graduation ceremony if it were held in the stadium at Heritage because of a medical condition that did not, in medicine that she was taking, that did not allow her to be exposed to the weather and the heat and the sun and that type of thing. So I respect the fact that there are always differing opinions. I will also point out that a supermajority of this board supported the contract and the venue 5-2, and I would not recommend any attempt to rescind that vote. What I can tell you is that we're going to have a different majority come January, and I will bring a contract, and that will either pass or fail on its merits based on the preference of a majority of the board, and I accept that. And I would encourage our board to accept the supermajority vote that's already preceded tonight's discussion, although I appreciate the discussion.
I have a question. As far as the graduations, how much of that expense is in the school district?
Right. So for the graduation, there are senior fees that are assessed annually, and a portion of those fees, of course, will go toward the venue. And so that's the other thing to point out is that we're making those necessary adjustments. And let me just say this about, someone mentioned the cost. The thing I would say is we secured the venue for New Birth, its proximity, its ability to accommodate the capacity. We talked about the proximity to the district. Now, listen, there's some, I'm not being facetious here, but listen, there's some great facilities that could accommodate our students in faraway places, but obviously we're going to rule out places that are outside of a close proximity. So there are exceptions to our bidding and purchasing policy. And those exceptions exist for a good reason, because it knows that the nature of specific services are such that it doesn't warrant competitive bidding. And professional services is one of the exceptions to bidding that our policy allows for. And that means that when you have a facility or a professional who's uniquely positioned to carry out a particular service, then there's not a ton of people that are doing that, right? And so while we have a church or two on every corner, and that's true in my hometown community and most communities, most of these churches in the county are not able to accommodate 450 graduates and their families and staff, or 480 graduates or 300 graduates and their staff and their families, right? And so we have to look for, yes, including Springfield. By the way, my first year superintendent, when I called and asked about them being a venue, first thing that they were saying to me is capacity is an issue. That's been the issue in the past, right? And so I spoke to Springfield every year, and I understand there have been individual board members who've reached out and they're telling you the same thing, which I know, which is that there's not the capacity there. We have our convocation there where we bring all of our staff together and administrators and our board members, and that's tight. We have to bust them in. I mean, it's tight, let alone the families and how many tickets we're giving students. They can't accommodate it. And Springfield has said to me, thanks for understanding that we can't accommodate as much as we'd like. We understand that you've outgrown Springfield in terms of the capacity needs. And so a New Birth has been very accommodating. But again, I'm going to do what I think is right for students, but I understand that when I come back next year, this time with a contract, that a majority of the board may very well say, no, we're going to have it in the stadium. And because the board doesn't make that decision of where, but they are empowered to vote on a contract that exceeds $50,000, I will abide by and rest with the majority position of the board. And that's not even in question that I would abide by that.
Dr.
So
Knowles, I
my
have a
question
question.
is, how much does the school district have to pay?
The venue is paid through the fees that are paid as part of senior fees by the students.
So
And
why are we making that decision? Why isn't that the students and their families not making that decision?
Mm.
You know, I'm just saying, you know, perhaps we can ask what perhaps we can include those seniors. And I've spoken to quite a few seniors because I said, would y'all like to go back to, you know, or do you want to have it? Their number one concern is not decreasing tickets. That's their number one concern. They don't want tickets decreased. They do want to be able to have more. That's always been the issue. My daughter graduated from the stadium. We had tickets. We needed more. And we was, you know, had to be at the stadium. But that's one of their concerns. And also another concern is the weather during the time of graduation. So I think that Dr. Oates, I would ask if possible for us for the next school year to speak directly to the rising seniors and let them have some kind of an input like they do for prom and other events that they have for their time.
Yes. So I was going to say, I like the idea of the surveys to get the feedback from the students. I've heard both sides. I've heard from people who are for us having it here in Rockdale, which I love that idea. But I was one of the ones that vote for us to have it in New Birth because even though I wanted us to have it here, I had to be realistic and say, where's the venue? If we're giving out 10 to 11 tickets, where's that venue here in Rockdale County? I remember I went to the graduation. I want to say it was maybe a year, 2 years ago. And one of the biggest issue was parking. And I'm telling you all this, I saw it myself, right? I saw it myself. I went to each high school because I wanted to wave and speak to people. And parking was an issue. There were people that were blocked into their driveways, but because people unwarrantedly parked and blocked them into their driveways. Like I said, I want us to have it here. I would love for us to have it here. I wish we had a venue. Perhaps that's a collaboration that could take place before with the county commissioner's office, with the school board, and with the city. I just wanted to share that, but I love the idea of the surveys and actually being able to sit and talk through it with some of the seniors because it is their event. But realistically, I don't know if I would want my tickets reduced this year because if we came into the school year knowing that the past few years they've been given 10 or 11 tickets, I wouldn't reduce tickets right now. Maybe for the next school year, we go into the school year knowing you're only going to get this amount of tickets. And that's my input. Dr. Holtz, if you could speak to the increase in the price from 1 year, because that is a jump. If you can kind of share some insight with that.
Right, certainly. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me say this in terms of the cost. I will tell you the first year, this would be the third consecutive year at New Birth. I was very pleasantly pleased with the cost in the first year and in the second year. But what I will tell you is that while this particular venue qualifies under professional services, which didn't require competitive bidding, of course, you can just go on and look at other sites and look. I mean, DeKalb County Public Schools announced earlier in the summer that they were going to be holding all of their graduation ceremonies no longer at the school sites, but at the Georgia State University Conference Center. And that's a huge facility, of course. But I believe that cost is $60,000 or $65,000 for the day for the schools. And then also I'm a former high school assistant principal over 2 decades ago in Gwinnett County. We used to go to what was called the Gwinnett Center, but now it's Gas South, I believe it is, and that would be $35,000 per day. per school, of course, for the graduation piece. And you see that with the 90,000 in the 3 high schools that we have, that's 30,000. So again, because of professional services, we did not have to engage in competitive bidding. But of course, you look around and you look at places that are in close proximity to get a sense of the cost, not because board policy required it, but because it makes sense. And so obviously, while when you say 40, 54, 90, of course, that you would say that's a big jump. But what I would tell you is that they were undercharging the first year or two, and I certainly took advantage of that happily, right? And I don't regret that I took advantage of that and accepted that cost. But of course, they were looking around because they're the venue owner, and they were questioning others about costs and doing their own research as well, and saw that they were undercharging. And so, again, this because of the cost, right? Let me also say this: when we were having it in the stadium, of course, they had to purchase the staging and all these things, and they were seeing some increases in costs from year to year in renting out those pieces. And so when we're back, I mean, I can tell you it's going to always be the board's decision going forward, just because of where the costs are. And there will be times, I'm sure, when the board will not vote to support an out of county venue. Now, someone mentioned collaboration. I did broach this issue with Chairman Nesbitt and Mayor Evans last school year about the possibility of pooling resources in the future for an event or an amphitheater or convention center that could more than accommodate, and they were very receptive. And recently, we were able to have that meeting with our incoming chairperson, Chairwoman Vanessa, and I asked her specifically about that, and she too has demonstrated a willingness, although she obviously said that won't be immediate for obvious reasons. We know that won't be able to be immediate, but she too committed to having conversations with Mayor Evans and myself and herself about pooling resources in the future to have an in-county venue that can more than comfortably accommodate not only graduation ceremonies, but other large congregant events. Doesn't look like it's on.
I don't know that there's any particular win to this situation because I've raised 5 children who have all graduated from high school. And as a woman of Caribbean descent, I was very surprised with my first child, the extent to which, I'm sorry to put it this way, Americans went out of their way to celebrate high school graduation. My initial reaction was, this is high school. If you celebrate in this manner, what will you do when they get to the collegiate years and they're graduating from college? Like, what are the resources that you're going to put into that? And someone said to me, Heather, that's your expectation for your children, is that they will all graduate from college, and thankfully they have. I make that point because I attended a graduation last week with a mother who dropped out of high school, and she was in a program that she was now graduating. Sandra was there as well. She was graduating with her 2 daughters. All 3 of them had dropped out of high school. And here they were, the daughters were now in their 20s, and they were having their high school graduation with their mother. It was such a momentous occasion for them because some families will never, ever see anything beyond a high school graduation. So it is egregious for us to have conversations about limiting the number of tickets when families do want to celebrate on this grand level, because again, their children will never, some of them will never see any other kind of graduation. I also argued the point when, you know, the schools are overcrowded and there's no parking over a kindergarten moving forward ceremony. These are momentous occasions for a lot of families, and I at first could not understand the significance of it because it is not my cultural norm to actually put a big deal into these things at this stage of their life. Again, my children graduated from Rockdale County, 4 of the 5. The 5th one graduated out of Gwinnett County, and we went to the stadium in downtown Atlanta. The traffic was horrendous getting there. The other children graduated from both Rockdale Magnet School and Rockdale County High School. We had a graduation for them for Magnet. Magnet graduation was on a Friday evening at 6 p.m. at the Georgia Tech Hotel and Conference Center. That was another nightmare trying to get downtown. And this is just for the magnet school students. And I'm sorry this is long-winded. I'm just making a point, right? Because we have to take everything. It's not a right and it's not a wrong, but we have to take the humanity of situations into consideration. It can't always be about dollars and cents, right? And so as my children graduated out of Rockdale County, all 4 of them, I will tell you that every last one of them was a different situation. The first year, and Dr. Oates did not mention this, Cindy Ball will remember, I sat on the school council committee and we voted and we did our surveys and we had feedback from the previous year, and the parents complained about not having enough capacity in the stadiums to have enough tickets, and therefore we voted to have it at the horse park. Logistical nightmare. Do you guys remember that? Absolutely. So now we had families that there was limitless amount of tickets, so everyone can attend. It was an absolute nightmare. The amount of money that we had to spend to just safeguard our students, to bring in resources, officers, it was a lot. That's child number 1. Child number 2, it rained. My family came all the way from Jamaica to celebrate my daughter's graduation, and everybody stayed home because we were allowed 2 tickets to go inside of Rockdale County Stadium. And I could go on because every one of the children experienced different situations, right? So if we are able to host them in a facility, before I move on, I'm a member of Springfield Baptist Church, and I would invite any of you who keep calling the name of Springfield Baptist Church in their mouths to call Pastor Eric Lee to stand at the podium along with the staff to see that they cannot accommodate us. Newton County used to use Pastor Lee's facility for their graduation. They no longer use it because it was a logistical nightmare, not just the people on the inside, but the parking. The community where I live is close to Salem. And again, the danger to our students and families trying to get across the street, trying to find parking, it was another logistical nightmare. I will say that for the past, this is our 3rd year, my first year at the graduation at Springfield was last year, and it was actually lovely. It was quite lovely because I missed it the year before because I had 3 students graduating from college. But I have not heard a single, I'm sorry, new birth. I have not heard a family that have gone through the experience complain. We are hearing community members argue about pennies, dollars, $10, $15, $28 more per student, what the students paying. But the families who get to enjoy these moments are not the ones complaining. I ask you to look at yourselves, look at your families, and look at your experiences and allow the students to graduate on their own terms, to allow their families to enjoy this moment, because some of them will never, ever, ever get this opportunity again. My experiences have been wonderful, even when it was only myself and my husband, because when we went home as Jamaicans, we got in and we celebrate with those people that flew into the country to celebrate my children.
Thank you, as I'm the one that brought this to the board discussion, but I heard you all say several things. I'm going to comment on those and I'm going to let this go. I understand we say that Springfield brings Dr. Pastor Lee to the podium, but I think we need to compare. As I said, I know we can't do 11 seats in Springfield. Well, no, first of all, let's bag up because it's all about the children. Let's do a survey of the children first. Yeah, we all run in different pots with different people. So, Principal Salem is back there now. Let's do a survey of these children and see what these children want. Because as I said all too many times, we want to say it's all about the children, but when we want to make it convenient, we start talking about families. But we don't want to talk about families when it comes to the taxes and all that stuff. Then we go into the fees towards the venue, Ms. Brown, and thank you for bringing that up. If we're in a free lunch territory where everybody get free lunch, how can they pay $250 for senior dues? And then if they're not able to pay that, then who pick up the price? Then when we talk about taking it to new birth, I said this from the graduation number 1. My mom is 88 years old, but she was transporting the students from Rockdale County to new birth because they had no transportation. Logistically is a nightmare at Salem, Memorial, every morning when we're at school. I get calls every week. If you pass through that, you see logistically, you can't even get that on a school day. I'm not saying have it at the school. I'm saying let's do what the children want. If they want to have it at the stadium, they have to know what consequences that's going to follow that choosing to have it at the stadium. So we want to talk about the fee. So like I say, let's do a survey. If we talk about we getting free lunch school, we have in addition, when all the students eat free, graduation rate as high as $250. Who's paying that? We got to go back to the parents then, okay? Live stream, Springfield live stream. Okay.
Springfield
And
doesn't have, Springfield doesn't have the capacity. We've already
capacity to
established
do what?
for graduation.
No. They may not have a capacity with 11 tickets per student. So let's see what they have a capacity. Well, first of all, let's do the survey. I would like us to do a survey. And because we always hear what's best for the students, let's ask the students what they want.
Right.
So the survey, bring, as Vice Chair Duncan said, bring Pastor Lee to the podium. Let him tell him how he can accommodate us. If it's 5 tickets, we need to go with the 5 tickets if that's what the students want. And you said not all about dollars and cents. I have to go back to the fact that we are a free lunch district, but we want our children to pay $250. So I have to ask that question again. If they can't afford it, where's the money coming from?
You have to ask them. They come, they pay it.
If please, that's not permissive, not permissible. Please respect the order, please.
We got, there's a lot of things we have to consider. I mean, transportation. And I know, and I understand y'all saying that it's so crowded at these schools, but getting to the school via foot, because we don't have transportation in Rockdale County. So if Rockdale County is totally crowded, maybe we should go and inform the neighbors. You all know graduation is going to occur this night. Please accept the fact that we're going to have a lot of people out here. Because my thing, no, listen, because we don't have MARTA that can take us from point A to point B. We don't even have a reliable taxi cab service here in Rockdale County. So transportation is an issue for a lot of our kids. And I know you all say y'all don't hear that, but I'm out here boots on the ground in my community. I hear this from the constituents. I hear this from the students. So I am asking, as I brought this as a board discussion, take in consideration what the students want.
Okay.
All
right. We're going to follow Robert's rule. I do have a couple of clarifying questions. As far as transportation, I recall, or I think I recall that we provided transportation through our bus system to get students that needed transportation to the church, right?
That's correct. And we have our Chief Operations Officer here, Phil, if you could speak to that in terms of what we're prepared to do and what we would offer in the way of any transportation issues.
We have been providing for students that needed it and even their families that needed it. Transport from their school.
Graduation. Newberry.
Yes. And I'm sorry, Phil, how do they sign up for that? What is the protocol or the process for that? Through their school? Okay.
And I know that we communicated that to high school principals in prior years.
Yes.
Also, it's been mentioned multiple times referring to the CEP program that allows all of our students to eat at no charge to them. I think the impression being given, clearly we had a percentage of students, a substantial percentage of students who were able to pay, but that specific program requires if a certain threshold is met, then it would allow all to eat without paying. And there are advantages that we still get reimbursed at specific rates as a district, but I don't want the impression to be, there was a threshold. It wasn't 100%. It wasn't, it was a threshold to establish that. And that's been a good thing because it removes the onerous process of having to try to convince people to fill out a lot of paperwork about free and reduced lunch. And so that often was a barrier for some students just out of pride in other things to access meals. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I'm digressing, but that was said multiple times.
Yes.
And I just wanted to.
And I had one other question. And when we talk about students not able to pay, were any students turned away that could not graduate because they could not afford graduation fees? What is the process for that?
Say that again.
Students who Okay, so we talk about students having a a graduation fee. Were any students turned away that could not graduate?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. No students were turned away for inability to pay. No.
So every student that wanted to graduate, because some clearly don't want to cross the stage,
Sure. There's
they
some
were
that
able
are
to
opposite.
graduate whether or not they can pay or not.
It's not contingent upon their ability to pay that they participate in graduate
Okay,
service.
thank you.
Mhm.
And let me say one thing. Go ahead. You go ahead.
And it's just a quick question, just for my own clarity. Do the graduation fees or the senior dues, does it pay for the entirety of the venue? Or is there any contribution from schools or the district?
Well, the way that we do it is you assess the fee that would be sufficient to cover the cost without there having to be any financial aid from the school district. But of course, we have that discretion if that is necessary.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna be done. One last thing. You say no one was denied graduation, but I guess the issue may be people may not feel comfortable coming to people saying they can't do X, Y, Z. Because this past year, 3 days before graduation, 3 days before, maybe 2 days before graduation, and because I'm the executive director for Rockdale Emergency Relief, a mom was in my office with her son, and I said, "Are you ready for graduation?" He said, "No, because I do not have a cap and gown." So if things are not told to these children, things that they need to do, because I've asked several times about transport. This is my first time hearing that y'all transport the parents, and I've been on the board. And if I was asleep, I'm.
No, you was talking.
But I've asked several years.
Still, you've been here 25, 26 years, haven't you? Okay.
But like I say, communication is very important. So if they can't afford, it needs to be made known to these parents. They don't have to stress paying those dues, and their child will still get a cap and gown or whatever they need. Because I know all too many of them I've even bought cap and gowns for students.
Well,
I'm just saying I bought cap, but so if the school is saying it's not a stress issue for them, then we need to let the students and the parents know that.
let me say something too, so that everybody would know. My daughter is a junior. I have a son that graduated already and a daughter. So for juniors and seniors, there is a remind. That means they're communicating with them throughout the entire year what needs to take place, what is due, and what they need to do. That information doesn't go to anyone that does not have a child that's not graduating because it's not even relevant to them. So you may not have received that information. However, it was sent out. The students were very much aware of it. And a lot of times, some of the things you're saying they're not communicated with, that is not true. You may not know about it because you don't have a senior and you're not on the remind and you're not relevant to who needs to be contacted. So that should not be put out there to make people think that we're not getting that information to our students. That is not true. And those students they get daily information, not just on their laptops or their phones, but their parents. We even get remind phone call, robocalls all the time. I hate them, but we get them. And so we do communicate. Not only that, we're putting this information on our website. So we are communicating. We should not be putting information out there to the public that we're not doing those things because that's not true. And I can tell you right now, they've been communicating with Rise and juniors in 10th grade. They started communicating with us and we get updates on a regular basis. So at this time, I'm going to move forward.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Very
Go ahead.
quickly.
Go
I
ahead.
think I see two principals in the high school principals in the audience. I don't want to put you all on the spot, but I would love to hear generally what are your high school seniors saying about the graduation? And I know that you're not speaking for any individuals, but generally, like what are you all hearing from your high school students, your seniors about the graduation? If you all don't mind sharing. Speak freely, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing.
Madam Chairwoman, I know that the contributions of two of our three high school principals who are here weren't able to be heard by our viewing audience, but I'll characterize what they said. They said that their seniors are principally concerned about and excited about graduating. The venue is not top of mind for the typical graduating senior, but what is top of mind is having enough tickets to accommodate the family and friends who are coming. And to that end, any recommendation of reducing the number of tickets currently won't go down well with graduating seniors. I know that as a fact, but
One thing I know for sure, when you start limiting the number of tickets, we experienced this when my daughter graduated, people started selling tickets. And so that was a big problem. I don't know if you had that. We had that problem when we limit the tickets in the stadium. So last person, go ahead, Akita.
I think I heard, well, I didn't think, today I heard from one of my parents, and she's already received her graduation packet announcing 11 tickets. So I'm not in support at this point of telling a family who's already notified her family, she's also Caribbean, that they cannot come after they've already made plans to come. But those packages have already gone out, to my understanding.
And the date and times are published at our high school websites. There's a countdown that's on most of our high school websites, and there have been messaging sent out to families as well. One of our assistant superintendents is a parent of a senior and said that she's gotten the message about the graduation date and time and other information related to graduation.
Let me correct one thing about communication. I didn't say we didn't communicate. I said we need to do a better job at communicating.
Doing a great job. Do I hear a motion to go into executive session at this time? So, thank you. Thank you. A motion has been made by Ms. Jones and second by Ms. Duncan. All in favor? Motion carries. Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks. The bus driver, Mr. Banks. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It is now 10:11 and we are back in session. All right. With no further business to discuss, do I hear a motion to conclude the meeting? A motion has been made to conclude the meeting by Mr. Kenny and second by Ms. Jones. All in favor? Motion carries.